Sorry, my dad is texting me. I gotta answer. Welcome back to Big City B. I'm B for those of you who are just joining me for the first time. If you're not already, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when my next videos are going to be coming out. Alrighty, let's get started. Today's book review is going to be Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. The genre for this book is LGBTQ epic fantasy. And I couldn't just say regular fantasy. I had to say epic fantasy because this reminded me of one of those great epic quests. Alright, we'll get into it. There are a few trigger warnings in this book, so make sure you check out down below in the description to see what those are. Alrighty, here's your summary. In the holy city of Tova, the winter solstice is usually a time for celebration and renewal, but this year, it coincides with a solar eclipse. A rare celestial event prescribed by the sun priest to be an unbalancing of the world. Your characters for this book, oh gosh, please stick through these or fast forward if you don't want to hear me mispronounce all of them. For track number 1, we have Serapio, Exila, and Naranpa. That's not right. And Naranpa. For track number 2, we have Okwa, Ikatan, Abba, and Hasten. I really apologize if I butchered all of these character names. I found them much easier to read in my head and make up how they sounded than to just say them out loud right now for this review. Moving on to what I liked about this book. Can't dwell on the past. It is what it is. The first thing that I liked about this book was the changing perspectives in each chapter. I liked this because it gave us a different perspective. It gave us different insight in different parts of the world, different cultures, and different religious beliefs. And I liked this because it made it a lot easier for me to build the world in my head, because I had bits and pieces from each of the 3 different main characters, whereas a lot of those details might have been lost if we only had a one character perspective. The second thing that I liked about this book was the inclusion of a third gender / non-binary pronouns. And I know in South American culture, this is very much prevalent to have a third gender or a non-binary gender associated with people, which I really enjoy and I really like, and like that is part of their culture. And it's not made a big deal of in this book, which I really love as well. It's just, it is what it is, and that's how it should be. It is what it is. The third and final thing that I liked about this book was the juxtaposition of Serapio's naivete with him being a vessel for an ancient god. I just found something so endearing about those two dualities in him, that like he didn't know how to eat a fish, but he's gonna kill the sun god and has this ancient god within him who is all-knowing and is all-powerful. I just thought that was really funny and made Serapio a little bit more human, even though he's not necessarily that. It was easy to connect with him and feel for him, well, because he's learning all these new things on this journey, but he's an all-ancient god too, so. Moving on to things that I didn't like about this book. The first thing that I didn't like, wanted more of, was the teak background. We do get a little bit of it from Exila when she talks about it on the ship, but it was so interesting, and also, like, who doesn't want to hear more about mermaids / sirens? That is not a spoiler, because you learn that she has the ability to control others with just her voice upon meeting her. The second thing that I wanted more of, not that I didn't like, was that I wanted the magic within the book to be more prominent. Later in the book, it definitely starts to make its appearance and surfaces in the book, but for like the first half, you don't really see that much of it, and you all know I love magic, so I wanted to see the magic in the book. But this is the first in a series, so I have to keep that in mind, that this is really all the world building and setting up, and we're leading into the second book, which I don't think is out yet. On to our Goodreads takes. Goodreads gave this book a 4.28. The things that Goodreads liked was that this book had dynamic morals, upbringings, and goals for the three main characters. They differed wildly, and it made it so interesting to see those varying levels of class and moral and upbringing. It was fun to read. They also liked that the world building and time within this novel were different from other fantasy novels. The third and final thing that Goodreads liked about this book, that everything in this book was epic. The world building, the characters, the plot, the adventures at sea, the prophecy, the political intrigue, and the diverse character representation. I agree. I thought this book was epic. Hence the reason why I can't just call it a fantasy. It's an epic fantasy because everything in it is epic. On to the things that Goodreads didn't like. I had to find them. I had to find that one person who gave this book a low rating because they got stuck on the fact that one of the characters said assure when they felt like the character should have said ensure. And so they were stuck on that, and they said that ruined the book for them, and that they were then questioning that maybe there were other points in the text when the author used the wrong word. The second review that I found on Goodreads that didn't like this book and gave it a low score was because this book made them not like fantasy anymore. They didn't like the prophecy trope. They feel like that's been overdone. The magic didn't make any sense in the book. They felt like the character names in the book were wildly distracting because of how unpronounceable they were. What else did she say? And they didn't like the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger is because there's a second book coming out in the series. You can't just like end the book when there's more books coming, because then people won't want to continue reading the series if the first book just ends. And then lastly, my last comment on that Goodreads review, that the names, it was so distracting for them that the names were unpronounceable. That's absolutely bullcrap. Because what about in Lord of the Rings, where all of the freaking names are made up mumbo jumbo? Huh? Frodo? Bilbo Baggins? I mean, come on. The last thing that Goodreads didn't like was they felt like this book was underwhelming because they felt like things were just happening to the characters and they didn't get a good sense of who the characters were. What is a book but things just happening to characters and how they then deal with the things that are happening to them? What was going on with these negative Goodreads reviews for this book? I don't know, but these people need to do something. They need to go get some happiness in their life. They needed to spend some time away from the computer because all of these were just garbage. Quote number 1. I am the only storm that matters now, and there is no shelter from what I bring. Ooh, this one is just so freaking bad. It's just epic. Like if you were to hear someone, you'd be like, that's epic. Like they're gonna be like an epic villain or something crazy is gonna happen and it's just gonna be so good. So I like this quote because it kind of just surmises how epic the whole book is. Quote number 2. Usually when someone describes a man as harmless, he ends up being the villain. Okay, when I first heard this quote, I thought, okay, gosh, that's a lot of like foreshadowing. But then, I don't know, read this book to find out. But this one got me because it's tricky. Quote number 3. A man with a destiny is a man who fears nothing. This is kind of true. Maybe not in the best sense. Maybe people who have a destiny still should kind of fear some things because I'm thinking about like the real life people who think that they have a destiny to bring Jesus to people and then they turn into like psychotic cult leaders and kill a whole bunch of people with Kool-Aid, you know? So like maybe you should be afraid of things like killing other people and your own death and harming others, and you know, fear is not a bad thing. Fear is an okay thing. Lastly, would I recommend this book? I'm sure you guys can probably already tell, but yes, I would recommend this book. Although, I will say, if you're looking for a happy, magical book, not this one. I suggested this to my work book club because the summary didn't seem like it had anything bad or sad happening to it, and my coworker specifically said that because it was January, they needed something light to read and something that was not so dark and heavy. And I was like, oh, everyone's talking about this book. The summary doesn't seem like it has anything dark or heavy in it. And it does. It's all dark and heavy. So, not a good book if you're looking for something not dark and heavy. But I love this book a lot. I'm really excited for the next book in the series to come out, and I will find it. I'm really bad at continuing series because I just can't find the books. That's not true. I could find them if I paid for them, but I'm a little cheap. For me personally, I can't justify buying books because if I read them and then don't like them, then they're sitting on my shelf forever and I'll just never read them again. And I find it really freaking hard to find places to donate books to in New York City, like ridiculously so. So then I feel bad just throwing them out on the street because I don't want to do that because they're books and they're precious. Anyway, I have trouble finding series because my library doesn't have them, or like the Libby app doesn't have them, or I can't find them for free on Kindle Prime, whatever. But this one I will find. This one I will find it because I liked the first book, so I will probably like the second book, so I wouldn't mind buying it. Which, that's a big wreck. I wouldn't mind buying it, so that means you should check out this book. If you have any other epic fantasy recommendations, leave me those titles down in the comments below, or if you don't have epic fantasy recommendations, leave me what your favorite mythical creature is down below in the comments. If you liked this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribed if you feel like you want to watch more of my videos. Alrighty everyone, all the best always. Bye!